Go.
There we go.
Got it. Go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
Ready or not.
I want to start with the whole empowerment thing because I found last week's conversation fascinating. And I kept thinking about how I could empower people. I didn't think about how to empower me, which is interesting, different people had different sort of takes on that. So I was busy thinking about how to empower people. And I just want to do a shout out right now to Jimmy Lou, who set up a event in our event group, Grow to Health and Happiness, who did all the work of finding the people, getting it set up, doing it at a time that didn't work for her because she was double booked at that time, but she was flexible and made it happen. So I think that really showed leadership on her part on the empowerment piece.
Absolutely. And then you guys doing the team call on Tuesday night and everyone getting all organized and all those things. And I think that was just the same thing. I think it's awesome.
So I would like to invite anyone else that has had an empowerment experience, positive or not so much, to share. I saw Sharon empowering her daughters this week. That's where empowerment begins, right? Yeah, so if anybody's got a thought to share. Pretty quiet group this morning.
Well, I guarantee you that I experienced no empowerment over the last week at all. Yeah, just for reference sake, because we are recording and who knows when somebody will watch this. I was down in Arizona for corporate training. I have been waiting. I don't know if I said this before. I said this to a few people. I have been waiting for this for 3 years. I have been a patient person. No, I have been an impatient person waiting. It was one of our exercises. We had to rate ourselves on how patient we were because they said that patience was very important as an ambassador. And a lot of us did not score so well on the patience. It was quite a funny exercise. Anyway, you know, the most empowering thing I think that I experienced when I was down there was not necessarily the training. I mean, the training was phenomenal. Like you would have paid thousands of dollars for the value that was given down there. But I think what was most empowering, again, is the palpable belief that these people have in you when you go to a corporate run event. And I was sitting last night driving and I was like, I had another moment. I had another wave where I was like, they just dropped thousands of dollars on me because they chose to. I did not earn it. Like it wasn't a contest. It wasn't whatever, right? Like, and that's the same thing as convention, right? They decide that you are worth it. You want to come and they will just pour belief and empowerment over you, right? Like it just standing there absolutely bawling my face off, looking at Genevieve and them telling us how much that they believe in us and that they are just so excited to partner with us and all of those things. You meet people from head office and they're just so happy to meet you because they genuinely love you. They're like, we love the field. If you guys didn't do what you do so well, we wouldn't have a job. Like, yeah. Compliance smiles at you. They do love you too. But we did have a fairly lengthy empowering session on compliance. We even played Jeopardy. It's fantastic. But anyway, I just want to, I will be saying this forever. if you want to truly be empowered by the plexus world, go to an event, move the mountains, do the things, go see the people. Just, yeah, you will come away so empowered and humbled.
And I think that's really what we're offering here, is our belief that the people that are coming, that they want to learn, that we want to share, that we want to pour in the value that we have to pour into people. I think that's a big piece of it. Cool.
I see the chat has some things in it.
Yes.
Brenna, and for us to joyfully receive the gift. Yes. When you realize that they're feeding you 3 meals a day and you've budgeted for 3 meals a day, and you realize that they've like, and it's a plexus spread, right? Like it's not, here's your sandwich. It's just over the top ridiculous. Sharon, I want to know if you can replicate some muffins I ate. My goodness. They were so good. They had raspberries in them and pecans. They were just ridiculously awesome. Sat down with Sheila Medina at length. Like, who does that, right? So I'm excited for all of you to have the same type of experiences. And I think that that's part of the whole thing, is that it has empowered me to want to develop people to the point where you guys get to feel that love. I can only love you so much. Plexus loves you more. I'm sorry. No, just kidding. You know how it works. Oh, Diana, I'm so sorry. We will be praying for your brother. He has an infection to do with his surgery. We will absolutely be praying for you guys. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on empowerment? I actually think that this chapter was hugely impactful for me even before I left. And I don't know, I think you guys probably feel the same way, is that as we go through all of this, it almost like there's some sort of like symbiotic steering of your life alongside of what we're studying or going to be studying and all of those things, right? I mean, I had a ton of post Zoom breakthroughs with the law of the inner circle, with the empowerment piece, and just, I don't know, like, do you guys ever read something and you're like, why did I stop doing this? I used to do this really well. How did I get off course, right? Like maybe it's a routine that you're doing in your life. Like, how did I stop doing that? I was doing super great with my water. I was doing really great with my kids, getting them to help empty the dishwasher or whatever. And you just have this moment where you're like, okay, we were doing that and it was working really well. How did we get off course, right? And so the course correction of these is just so beautiful.
I absolutely agree. And we're going to move today into the law of the picture. People do what people see. And as I was reading and going through this one this week, I'm like, oh, this one's hard, like really hard, because we talked last week a little bit about that game, Follow the Leader. And the greatest gift of a leader is that good example piece. Like you can tell anybody, you can teach all of it, but your people do what your people see. So your people do what you do. That was part of Sharon's post, her social media post this week. You know, people do what people see. If you're saying something that your kids can hear, they're going to be saying it to their friends because they do what they think is right for an adult to do based on what they see. So John Maxwell talks about the first person you have to lead is yourself. The hardest person you have to lead is yourself.
Sometimes I don't want to lead me. I'm a stick in the mud. I don't want to do what I tell me to do.
And then you don't trust you because you didn't do what you told you to do.
Anybody else? Anybody else resonate that leading yourself is very frustrating? Amy's got a hand.
So
And Chelsea, yep.
I'd actually like to brainstorm a little this morning and ask people, what does a credible leader look like? What kind of characteristics do you look for in a leader? Somebody that you want to follow, somebody that kind of you're kind of not exactly looking up to, but kind of like you want to be like that. You want to be able to do those things. So what kind of characteristics are you looking for? Yes, Chelsea.
Sorry for the Peppa Pig in the background. That is what helps keep the sanity while I try to do calls. But when I'm like, I've often found that there's not a lot of people in my actual circles, usually of people that I really look up to when it comes to a spiritual sense of things. And that's just what I'm thinking about right now. That's what firstly comes to my mind. A lot of, I really trust someone when I see them being authentic and not just trying to show like, wow, look at the perfect side of me that never struggles. I can't identify with that. I can look up to them and be like, wow, you're amazing. And I could never be you, but I want to be you. But if I can't see them kind of walking through the same things that I'm walking through, then I have a hard time trusting them. But if I see them succeeding in the things that I struggle with, but they talk about how they sometimes struggle with it too, I'm like, okay, this person knows how to help me because I'm struggling with this, but they're doing it well, but still have moments where they have setbacks. And I don't know, I look for someone who has good character, but I also look for someone who is honest and helpful, and who teaches well, who's servant-hearted, but also who doesn't just make it all about themselves, but really just, I don't know, someone who, like, when you talk with them, all you want to do is just like go spend some time with Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, that's, yeah, people who make me want to spend more time with Jesus just because they literally emanate Jesus's love. And that's my cue to be done with this.
I think that's actually really, really good. It's wanting to spend more time with people who make us be better people, want to be better people. I really like that, Chelsea. Yeah. Anybody else?
I think Chelsea's comment about authenticity makes sense and is really good. That's like talking about health and feeling better and all that sort of stuff and calling music to work, or only showing pictures driving through the drive-through. They're not congruent. They don't necessarily are opposites either. Like, I don't actually get to travel very often. I don't get to go to restaurants very often. So my options are fast food because I actually don't even like taking time to sit down to eat when I'm doing all those other things. So it's how to show those things. And one of the things when I read the chapter, it really talked about how do you show how you're doing IPA. People see your posts, people see your stories, but there's a messaging and connecting and that sort of stuff that they don't see. And so remembering to message the people who are already watching you.
I really like that, Amy. I think there's a lot of wisdom there. And a lot of wisdom that can be shared, especially during this IPA challenge that we're doing. I think most of us in here are doing it. Even saying like, hey, just wanted to encourage you guys to get your messages out. I just was able to get 3, checking that box off for today or whatever, right? Like an encouragement piece. And I think there is that it sets up an expectation for maturity, but also like on behalf of the people that are receiving the information, right? To read it as, you're not bragging. That's not what we're here for, right? But we need it modeled in order for us to be able to teach that, right? It's like, hey, So glad. We want to hear when you guys do that because we want to celebrate with you and we want to see that we're doing hard things together, right? It is easier to do hard things when you have people that are coming alongside you and doing those same hard things, right? It's just the same as why we want somebody to come to the gym with us or a group of people to go for a walk with us, right? It is easier to get out the door if you got somebody with you. And I think the other piece too is to look at the alternative, right? Things we look for a leader, because a leader that we follow may actually be a negative influence, right? There may be people that we choose to follow. So this could be on social media. This could be people in your life. You choose to follow that leader because they make you feel good. And it's not necessarily in a positive manner. They allow you to stay in a mentality that does not actually serve you in your goals, but it feels good, right? It feels good to watch somebody who is complaining about something that does really irk you. It feels good to, like, sometimes it does, right? And so we really have to watch ourselves. And there may be leaders too, who we have watched in the past for positive things and empowerment and all of that kind of thing, who start to slip. And then you go, okay, I need to reframe. Am I getting the value? Are these thoughts serving me? What are they bringing about? What feelings is this eliciting in me? Is this positive? Yeah, toxic relatability. Those are two words that are brilliantly put together, Chelsea. And I think on the other side too, I know that at one point in time, this was more of a buzzword, but there is also toxic positivity to the other side of it. However, I have like about 1,000,000,001 feelings about that, so I won't go there, but just being aware.
I think some of the other things I think of when I think about a leader is their trustworthiness. Chelsea talked about authenticity. I think trustworthiness. If they say they're going to, I mean, in the real world where we could meet physically, meet me at 10 o'clock, and I go there at 10 o'clock and nobody shows, and there's no message and there's no anything, it takes out of that trust bank. Mm-hmm. And it depletes that leadership level, I guess, is maybe part of it. And then the trust has to be rebuilt. And I mean, back to John Maxwell, he says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And if influence is the intent of leadership, then for me, trust is a really, really important key to that. Some of the other things that I think about are values. If the person has totally opposite values than I do, then they're probably not going to be the person that I choose to emulate in most ways as a leader. I may find pieces of what they offer valuable.
It is so incredible how we can just keep going back to that dang value sheet, right? Like, I feel like alignment there is just like such a core piece. And I would really like to start keeping track how many calls we are on that we mention values, because I completely agree.
So in this chapter, there's some conversation around what you need to do to change yourself, improve yourself. But I'd like us to think first about, what do we do well? Where are we good in leadership? Because we often find it really, really hard to say out loud where we're good in leadership and whether it's in a specific area of life, whether it's in a specific area of expertise. But if anybody's willing to share a little bit about where they feel good in leadership.
Yeah, if you guys,
Yeah.
share and
Sharon.
unmute. If you guys don't want to say it out loud, feel free to throw it in the chat and we'll read it for you.
Okay, I'm awake enough now. I woke up like 5 minutes before we started. Yeah, no, I think for me, a huge part of leadership is relational, right? Because I'm not going to go and I'm not going to follow someone that I feel does not give 2 cents about me, right? So, yeah, that ability to connect is huge to me when I'm trying to follow someone, when I want to follow someone, but it's something that I'm also very good at doing, right? Is connection. So
I would affirm that. You are very good at that.
This is a little bit of a side note, but I was listening to Emily Gibson yesterday, and her comment was our degree of relationship and connection with somebody is our thought. I'm like, no, it's a two-way thing, right? Like she's no, it's our thought. If you watch somebody, you see them, they're congruent, they're all the things, and you're like, yeah. And then you go to have a conversation, you feel very connected to that person. You like you've seen a lot, you know what? They have never met you. They've never been introduced to you. They don't even know your name. And they have no relationship with you. None. The relationship is in our thoughts. And this was a totally foreign thing to me when I went to my first convention. And Janelle will remember, I'm walking in this like room of 10,000 people and people are saying, are you the Joy Home girl? Like, are you the Joy Home? Could I get a picture with you? And it was my first experience that people could feel a connection to you when you didn't even know them. So we talk a lot about relationships and getting connected and spending time on relationships and trust building. But it comes from here. And this has been like a bit of a mind shifter, a little bit of a mind stir up for me the last couple of days about, if it's coming from my thoughts, what do I want my thoughts to be? What are the thoughts that are going to serve me well?
And I want to just layer on that because people got value from you. And I actually remember having the conversation with everybody who came to convention that year. And I said, don't be surprised if there are people who come to you and say, oh my gosh, are you whoever, right? Because people watch you. When you choose to be a big value add and you step out into the arena, people need to know what arena you're in, right? If nobody knows you do Plexus and you just generally value add, that's not going to happen in the Plexus arena. But you're like, if you were to gather with a group of people that were on your Facebook or whatever, they probably will be like, hey, I know you. And you're like, I don't, I'm sorry. It's okay. Right. But we see it happen in Plexus often with, people like Sherry Grant or with Emily Gibson or with, Amy Kosmolsky or with like whoever, people that you choose to follow that you have elicited emotional response or connectedness to what they've said, and you follow them and you really care about them. And then all of a sudden you have to take a step back. You're like, hold on a second. This is just a one-way relationship. I'm just a fan. I'm a follower. We actually don't have a relationship. Yeah. It is a funny phenomenon that I have watched in Plexus. Now, here's the other piece. I remember, and I've told this story before, And this is just a cautionary tale. I remember an ambassador coming to convention with me, being so excited to meet Emily Roberts. So excited. Like they had followed her, they'd connected with her. They felt like she really understood them. She often empowered them. She led them well. Unbeknownst to her. No idea. Emily Roberts at this point in time was very pregnant in Vegas, having walked a lot and done a lot and seen a lot of people and had a lot of people like stop her, because all these diamonds get stopped all the time to take pictures. Sherry gets stopped all the time to take pictures, has a hard time going to the bathroom. And she's in the elevator with Emily Roberts and she's like, oh my gosh, are you, or no, it wasn't even the elevator. They were going to the elevator. And Emily goes, okay, can you walk in selfie? And her exchange at that point let the ambassador down massively, because she had created this, how this meeting was going to happen and who this person was going to be and whatever, and did not factor in the humanness of the incredibly pregnant, exhausted, run down person, human on the other side of that, right? So we can choose to follow people, but we can also make up false stories in our minds about who they actually are. Now, I'm not saying that Emily's a bad person. I honestly think that she just caught her at the end of the day when she was not feeling her best. And yeah. And unfortunately, that person at that moment, I don't think had the growth to say, oh, I'm just impeding on somebody's need for space and whatever. And it was really sad because the person actually just completely wrote her off and was like, oh yeah, she's not actually who I thought she was. She was like, you know what I mean? And it was like, you got so much value from her. She encouraged you so much. Why? Why would you?
Again, that's a thought in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought in our head is our choice.
Mm.
So we chose to not be grateful for a walking selfie and instead to think a different thought.
Mm-hmm.
So leadership is very interesting because of the fact that we can be leading people who we are not well connected with in terms of understanding their needs specifically. So I think the question is, why do so few leaders grow other leaders?
That's a great question.
So when we think about it, why do we not offer the resources, offer the empowerment, offer do the equipping to grow other leaders? And interestingly, John Maxwell in this chapter talks about the fact that sometimes we're just too insecure. We don't think we have enough to offer. And so we don't offer anything. It's like somebody comes to the house and we don't have very much in the house. We've just got some tea. But we don't offer them tea because that's not enough. When really, if they could have had a cup of tea, it would have just rejuvenated them. So sometimes we think we don't have enough to offer. We're just insecure about it. Sometimes we've spent too much time with followers, people who just said, oh, you're so good. You're so whatever. Like they stroke our ego and it just feels good. And Janelle talked about the danger of falling into the feel-good zone of people just say you're great. People just say you're good. And you don't get challenged to be better. And he says followers are easier to find and easier to lead than leaders. And if anybody ever has heard the terminology about trying to herd a group of cats, they're going every direction. It's like, that's what leaders are like. They're off checking this out. Maybe this would work. How about this idea? I'd like to think about this. And you're like, there's actually a vision here. Oh no, this would be better. finding and leading leaders. He said, turkeys flock, eagles don't. Eagles are hard to find. They're hard to gather. They're hard to keep. Eagles aren't looking for an opportunity. They're busy finding them. So it's a different energy when we're developing leaders.
You know, it's super interesting. When you look at Tarl Robinson, who, if whoever's watching doesn't know who this is our, like, he is the dude at Plexus. He is our founder and CEO. The first convention I went to, my leader told me, she's like, oh, Tarl is talking next. That's a great time to go to the bathroom. He is painfully boring. It is just painful to watch him. And it's just a really good time to go to the bathroom. And I mean, we could talk forever about what that would have spoken to me, the new leader's heart, right? About our CEO, but we're not going there. The growth that that man has displayed over the last 6 years that I have been watching him is nothing short of astronomical. And I don't embellish. I'm like, no word of a lie. And every time I see him, I feel like he has yet grown more and grown more and grown more. But he didn't start that way. And interestingly enough, I was sitting at a table with Ledette. So she's an emerald from BC. She's in her 70s. Most of her team is in their 70s. Very interesting. She doesn't have like anybody who's younger. No, like moms, young moms. I'm like, what? How do you do Plexus without, just kidding. It was just very interesting. Anyway, and she had actually been part of the network marketing company that Tarl's mom had been a part of years and years and years ago, and had actually met Tarl when he was 15. Going to their home for a retreat. She had earned it. I had never heard of the company. I don't know if they're still around anymore. But she had met him when he was 15 years old. And she's like, he was very quiet. Did not want to be the center of attention. In fact, if anything, stayed very withdrawn, very, like, she said he answered the door, he was polite, he was kind, but he was not wanting to jump into the middle of things. And so I look at that and I think, wow, I mean, I've got a 15-year-old but thinking about the man that she painted him to be, or young man that she painted him to be at 15, and then to see this progression years later, 25, I don't know how old Tarl is, but you just think he is someone who develops leaders because he consistently raises the bar for himself. He's leading himself well, like we talked about at the beginning, right? The Power of the Other is one of his favorite books, and that was one of our first book club books this year. He is constantly listening to a book. He said he listens to a book every day on his way to work. He said it's about a 20-minute drive. He said, so it usually takes me a while to get through a book. He's like, but I'm always listening to something. He's always, he leads and empowers people so well. He's one of those people that goes into the office and goes around to everyone and says hello. He makes you feel like you're important. He makes you feel like you want to become better. And I think we are just so blessed to be led by somebody with that kind of vision, right? Because you choose to start a company, it doesn't mean that you're a good leader. I mean, obviously he lacked in a lot of skill at the very beginning, but it's also empowering, just like when John Maxwell talks about where he came from, to see the growth and to see what's possible, and then to see who he's developing underneath him But also, in my estimation, and maybe you guys don't see this as much as I do, it is also very interesting to me to see who comes into plexus, but who stays. It's interesting to see the people that just don't align and they disappear into the background or choose to find another company. Because I think that when you set high standards, not everybody wants to take that look. Right? So yeah, I marvel at that man.
Well, I think, Janelle, you've just given us a really beautiful list of attributes of what a good leader looks like. You've just highlighted some of the key ones that you've noticed with Tarl. And so for those that haven't really thought about a leader in that context, I think that's a great place to start thinking about what that leadership looks like in someone you admire. Therefore, which of those attributes maybe aren't quite solid for yourself? If you're looking at your team and saying, oh, I just wish they'd do a little more messaging, probably you need to check how many messages you're sending. Not enough. If you have a thought about something that isn't in, and it's in your group, up, down, sideways, it's that 360-degree leader, something that isn't there, then look in the mirror. And do you have that? And do you have that to offer? Is that a place that you can provide value and leadership within the team?
I think that goes back to knowing and being okay with your value. Because again, like your example with tea, right? I think that we look for what we lack and we say, I don't have that, so I can't give that to you. But we really miss what it is that we do have. And I honestly think that his whole concept about leading down, leading to the side, leading up is exactly the kind of value that we need in our team. So I'll just talk about it as our team because I can't talk any further, but there is so much value to be added. I mean, it does not matter to me that Sherry is my level. Why do I always forget 3? Because I just assume that you're my level 1, but you're not. So if I'm actually having to like not lie, lying by omission, no. It doesn't matter to me that Sherry is my level 3. I could probably speak for a very lengthy amount of time about all of the value that she has given me as her leader because she chooses to be a 360-degree leader, right? Linda chooses, whether she knows it or not, to be a 360-degree leader. She adds value to me as her level 4 upline constantly without knowing it because she is so generous with who she is. She is a 360-degree leader. I know that all of you guys feel the same way as a sideline to Linda, that she shows up, that she adds value, right? And that is a blessing and leadership to people on the side, right? I talk about sidelines often. And yeah, maybe you will find relationships that are 1 in a million. And I'm not saying that you have to copy something that is had, but it doesn't mean that you can't have valuable sideline relationships. Again, going back to the events, guys, going to events, sometimes in order to create relationships with people, you need to get face-to-face with them. I have met so many new people over the last week, and I'm in so many new chats with people that I've met. It's phenomenal. And those people add value to my life and they're leading me from the side. It's amazing. And this kind of culture does not happen all the time. Oftentimes people are closed, right? Especially in female-led organizations. I don't know why we do this. I'm so glad we don't do this, right? Please understand that you have value to add, because if you diminish your own value, you are robbing the person beside you, above you, and below you from the value that you have. And I will be putting out, for those of you who guys are who are gold and above, if you are not gold and you still want to be a big leader, like, come talk to us. We are like open. The doors are open for anyone who chooses to lead in a positive way. We want to invite people specifically to come and be part of leadership in our grow culture. We haven't done an altar call for leaders for a long time. And I think we need to, right? We need people that are leading from the front, who are leading from the back, who are leading from the sides, who are leading from above, below, around, inside, outside. It doesn't matter. We need people to step up into their value. And the only way to step up into your value is to know what your values are. Back to the values again, right? And so I'm sorry, I'm asking you to think. We're asking you to think. We're asking you to name those things that are important to you about leadership. Like Sherry said, what are those attributes? Do you possess those attributes? Which ones do you have a little bit of a start on? Are they just like a little starter plant that just needs some love? Right? You cannot have every single attribute figured out at this point in time. We're not asking for that. We're asking for a few core ones to be shared with others 360 degrees, because it will just go so much better. And again, we go back to the whole, if your team isn't doing something, like Sherry was saying, the messaging. One of the greatest and most difficult parts of this business is that it is all up to me. Explain that to a room full of people who know nothing about network marketing. That was fun. But it is all up to me, and yet it is all up to me, which is so encouraging, because it's not like you're stuck. A quick little example. I was a pharmacy technician. I loved the idea of learning more and doing all of those things. But guess what? Unless I was going to go to school for like a long time, I wasn't moving up. It didn't matter how much I learned. It didn't. But with this, you have no glass ceiling. Business-wise, growth-wise, anything like that. You have no glass ceiling. You can grow as much as you want to.
And I think that is, it's what you said at the beginning, Janelle. The really sad thing is it's all up to me. The marvelous thing is it's all up to me. I can make the difference. I can lead by example. And if I don't like how it's working, I can change. I can think differently. I can look for growth in different areas. I can look for more knowledge. I can look for whatever it is I feel as a leader that I'm not proficient in, equipped in. I don't have to wait for somebody else. I can step up and do it.
I love that. I don't have to wait for someone else.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to wait for my leader to be proficient at doing reels in order to start doing them.
I can just watch Diana's reels. Chelsea's reel. Like I got sidelines I could learn from.
Or Instagram, or not Instagram, YouTube, or whatever, like
anything.
The fact that you have the opportunity to lead yourself in this business, in life, in general, right? Like, it is so brilliant. And we are actually talking about the law of the picture and vision and all those things. And sometimes I think that oftentimes as we progress through leadership, vision changes. Sometimes vision gets a little foggy. sometimes it changes depending on direction. I think about our vision pre-Canadian opening, post-Canadian opening, you know, now however many years that we're into, like 3 years down the road, Canadian, like it's very different. Our vision, even our vision as Canadian ambassadors is different than the vision of American ambassadors. I'd like more American ambassadors. That's just me. I think that would be really
Well,
cool.
then you know how that works.
Yep.
Up to me.
Completely, right?
Up to me. Yep.
It is totally up to us. But yeah, I think it's just super fun that we're talking about the law of the picture because, and I've been sharing a little bit with Sherry that as soon as I sat down on the plane, because I hadn't read this yet, as soon as I sat down on the plane, 6 a.m., I don't know why my brain was awake. I pulled out my laptop and like vision just came like pouring out of me. Guys, if you know me, I did spreadsheets with tables and I didn't die. Like, it's just really cool.
So I do find it interesting that John talks about mission as being our purpose, our why. And we go back to our why over and over again. And I heard somebody say it in a little bit more sort of down to earth terms this week. It was just like, why did you start sharing? Just keep the why simple. Your why is going to change anyway. Keep your why simple. And the mission at the company level is probably bigger than the mission at our personal level because we're growing into the bigger mission. He talks about vision as being the picture. Vision is that visual picture. That picture you can use words to paint or drawings to paint or whatever way you choose to see the picture. He talks about that as being the what. So the why and the what. And then he says the strategy is the plan, is the how. And so often I am guilty of, I want to know how that could work before I've actually got what are we really doing? What's the real goal here? I get them mixed up. And as soon as I get immersed in the how, before I've got those other things clear, I am stuck in the mud.
I need to read a little bit more on those S and C pieces of the DISC personality test because I think we have a lot. So I took another personality test, which I think that they're so interesting. I think it's just so, what's the word? Like, I don't know. Sometimes you feel a little stripped naked when you take them, but I just think it's so valuable to seeing how other people's personalities react and how they could react to you. And then how you can, because if you haven't noticed, Sherry and I have very different personalities. So if although I will say that I often do that as well. I want to know all the details before I've even taken a step. Like, but what about this? I'm going to give you the strangest occurrence ever that could ever happen. What are we going to do if this thing that's going to take, like, what are we going to do if this little thing happens? The chances are not very, very good, but I want to know what we're going to do. But it's just so enlightening to know how to walk with people who are very different than you and what to do if Sherry gets stuck in the mud. What the I in me is supposed to do, the excited young puppy in me is supposed to do when she gets stuck in the mud and not scare the ever loving daylights out of her because I've just come to her with far too much excitement and not a tow rope.
You could have brought the tow rope and we'd have been fine.
I'm just there for the party. Like, I'm just excited. Like, oh, there's mud and you're stuck. Hey, I'll bring snacks. Right? Like, that's
yes.
Not helpful. Joyful, not helpful. Chelsea said, don't get attached to the desired outcome, but get attached to the why. Yes. As long as our vision is secure on why we're doing something, honestly, that tends to cover motivation 1,000%. The other piece that I just want to touch on here is number 4, just on page 143, says the most valuable gift a leader can give is being a good example. And so I want to give you guys permission that if this is a difficult thing for you, forgiveness starts now and is retroactive for yourself. Like, you do not need to be a hard-nosed leader to you or to anyone else. You get to start again, because there is absolutely nothing that you can do about the past to change what has happened. Like, no matter how hard you try, or no matter how much you think about it, or obsess about it, or worry about it, or feel guilty about it, none of those things are going to change how you are now. I love the concept. How are these thoughts serving you? We did a little exercise that, and my book is out in the living room because I was talking about it, but it was an acronym. And one of the things was, how are these thoughts serving you? Like, how is this helping you to go forward? Right. And I am going to talk about that acronym because it's not now, but it's so fantastic, because by the end of it, you're essentially thanking yourself for having the thought to begin with. I'm so glad that I had that thought, because it has brought me through all of these things. So be thankful that you have the awareness that this is not in alignment with where you want to be with your leadership. Be thankful for that awareness, and then ask yourself what you can do right now to move forward away from that, away from repeating the past. Everything is figure outable. Everything can be moved forward from, right? And, there may be some people who, and I'm just throwing this out there, it's probably nobody here. I'm probably talking to nobody, but there are probably some people that if you have made errors in judgment, we won't call them mistakes. If you've made errors in judgment in your leadership in the past, or relationships, or anything like that, we don't need to talk about business. If you identify those things and you go, oh, those people probably aren't going to want to follow me anymore, I may have actually messed it up. You know what? It honestly, it is what it is. People are far more forgiving than you think that they are. And so just moving forward and trying is probably your best option. But realizing that from here on out, you can make changes. And it's up to them to decide how they feel about it going forward. It's actually not up to you to decide how they feel. Emily, we're going to reference Emily. She talks about how everything is 50-50. And that was so freeing to me. She's like, what if everything is just 50% good and 50% bad? And there's no, like, you get to attach the meaning to it. So moving forward and making steps in that direction, guys, just forgive yourself for what has been, and then make the next right step to go forward. Sharon, how many times have you watched Frozen 2 with your kids? The next right thing, do the next right thing. I love that song. It's so nice. But I think it's a good lesson, right? Yeah. Moving forward to do the next right thing, leading by example. If you're like, hey, there's nothing in my day that I did yesterday that should be an example. Well, you're on book club today. Good job.
And just kind of on that note, I think we should do a little bit of navigating, because I believe that some places change their clocks tomorrow. Not in Saskatchewan, but some places change their clocks tomorrow. And I think Janelle checked on the book club time in
The
November.
corporate book club. Yeah.
Corporate book club time. And so we don't want to be operating at the same time. And I think the corporate book club time, if I understood that graphic correctly.
I'm not sure enough. I have to go back and look one more. Like, I feel like I have like post-traumatic time zone like issues. Anybody? I said that thing to somebody, to another leader at Jewel training this week. I said, I honestly think that the hardest thing about this business is time zones. I think it was Emily Finnell. She said time. She goes, I think you're right. I think you're right. I said, it's not even just time zones. It's people's perception of time zones. She goes, yes. I'm like, yes.
That too.
Yes. She was just a joy.
So on
No, it is-
Saturday, November 20th, it says for the corporate book club,
9
it says
a.m.
11 a.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Central time, 9 a.m. Mountain time, 8 a.m. Pacific time.
So that
I
means
understand that we will be on Central time.
yes, everyone hear that? Saskatchewan and Manitoba now are
On the same-
central starting
same
tomorrow.
time.
We don't change our time. The zone seems to change. Now, that's probably not even correct, but for all intents and purposes, that's what we're going with.
Right. So that means that Saturday, November 20th, corporate book club will be at 10 a.m. in Saskatchewan time, 9 a.m. in the Mountain time zone, 8 a.m. in the Pacific time zone. Sharon knows where this is going.
Earlier is how it's going.
So, so I think that means that if we stay at 9 a.m. Saskatchewan, which is 9 a.m. Central time, we will not be interfering with corporate book club time. Is this making sense for everybody?
We will still be recording it. It's only what
I
week are
believe
we on anyway?
I believe that Mountain Time, it'll still be 9. That's what my email said.
This is the problem, Diana, is we've got a graphic that says 9 a.m. Mountain time, 10 a.m. Central time.
I'll
For
be
book
on
club.
Mountain.
Yeah, so you'll be on 9 a.m. Mountain time.
You'll be on 9 a.m. Mountain time, Diana.
Right?
That means our book club, our 21 laws, will be at 8 a.m. your time.
I'll see you
I
at the
knew this was
recording.
going to come down.
I'll see
Yeah, we're
you
sorry.
at the recording.
There'll be a recording.
There will be recordings. We
But
are
I knew
sorry.
this was going to come down to be like, what?
I think when we started, we were really hopeful that the Plexus Book Club would shift an hour later so that we could shift an hour late. So like we were hoping that Plexus Book Club would be at 11 Central. So we could be at 10 Central, which would be at 9 Mountain and 8 Pacific, but it was not to be.
So
We are
for
just
the
following
next-
corporate.
From now on, I guess, starting next weekend, for me, it'll be at 8 a.m.
Yes.
Right? That's early, but okay.
Okay, Diana, I'd like you to expand your perspective to, and on my screen, it's to look above you, but to look at Sharon
Yeah.
and think about what time this will be for her.
It will
Okay,
be
Sharon, if
early.
you show up at 7, I'll show up at 8.
Sharon might get a pass. Nobody gets any excuses because 20th. I'm gonna help go and do the book study. So
No excuses.
there.
Sherry, that was
I'll be
very
there. Y'all
strategic.
can be there. Yeah.
Sherry was very strategic. So just at FYI, we have guest amazing, brilliant leaders that are going to be empowered to take over book club on the 20th. It will be amazing. You don't want to miss that one. Sherry and I, unfortunately, will probably be missing it somehow because we will be in Alberta. Hopefully. And yeah, all right. So next week, there will be a change for some of us. Others of us, there will not be a change.
And we'll try to remind and help your sister sidelines remember because we may all get into a little mess.
Do you understand? We're trying to give the picture. We're trying to do the law of the big picture. We're trying to cast the vision. We're trying to follow this Maxwell law to help everyone get to the right place.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, for all the input, for all the sharing, and for all the empowering that went around in the big picture.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week. Take care.